microphone was not. Alright, I'll edit that first bit off. No one's watching live anyway, I don't think. Right, okay, so, I'll say hello again. Hello, it's Ross from Britain's Hidden History. And I'm doing a story about Punt, which is supposed to be this great trading nation somewhere between the sort of the Horn of Africa and Saudi Arabia, or the Arabian Peninsula, as it would have been. And some say it's on one side, some say it's the other, some say it's twice. But when you look into it, it's an absolute load of nonsense. It's a complete... it's a fabrication. I don't think the country never even existed, alright? So it's one of those very, very strange things. Now, what put me onto this is I'm doing the final touches, editing to publish Wilson's and Blackett's book called, probably working title is Odyssey Retold, which tells the story of an ancient Egyptian mariner who went round the whole world, probably the 7th or even 8th century BC, and the story he came back with is the one which Homer then took and changed into his Odyssey and made it all, Greeks and all that kind of stuff. And if you go into Wilson and Blackett's work, you can see who Agamemnon really was, Menelaus, all these people. A lot of it's got its foundation in Greece. They were living in Greece. It's in the Odyssey. You can read all about it in Moses and Hieroglyphs and Trojan War, okay? Oh, there's a couple of people logging on. That's nice. I didn't trail this or anything, so hello. I think comments are live. So, well done, the lucky ones who happened to be looking while I went live on this. So what we're doing is, so as part of the research of that, I've asked people, I want to put more about how the journey could have been, and do we have any evidence to back up this wonderful work that Wilson and Blackett has done by looking at the hieroglyphs and looking at the Odyssey and actually looking at it literally. It tells you where they went. Let's go there. Now, one kind person is John Brimelow, who's been in touch. I have to say it's been great, and a few people have sent me information, things to look at. I've got information on Australian hieroglyphs, the Gosford hieroglyphs, visits to New Zealand and records there of ancient mariners arriving, all this kind of stuff. So it's great. And he told me to have a look at Mercer Goasis. And I'll put it on screen in a second, you'll see what that is. And while looking at that, in fact, let's just go straight there now. Hang on a second. Okay, so this is Mercer Goasis. I think there's a map there. You can see it's on the Red Sea. This is the first hilarity, is how this is supposed to read. Mercer Goasis is just bizarre. They say it says Sao, or with a number 3 in it. Not sure what that is. And Sao, so, how they've got this is that's supposed to be an S. We'll just ignore the goose, pretend it's not there. That's an A, and they think these are W's. So you've got S-A-W, and we'll just pretend that's not there. They call it a denominator or whatever. I was looking at it just quickly. If you look at Cymroglyphics, which shows you how you can really read hieroglyphs and how the Welsh language is a key to unravelling that, because it's actually an ancient Assyrian language which is preserved. I'm going to that right now. There's other videos you can look at. So the first thing, that's a fastening bolt, which is to fasten certain sikrai in Welsh, and that's sure and certain. Then you got presence or awareness, which is the goose, gwydd. And then we got this bird we see a lot, which is to pledge. And I think it's quite interesting little symbols, this little collection. Because what you have is in the certain presence, we make a pledge, and this is like to keep a promise, to be faithful. So promise to be faithful, and because there's 2 of them, this implies then you got the Welsh word for 2 is dwy, and then Dieu is God. And actually, it's a little bit similar in French if you think about it. And Dieu, toi, and Dieu is for God. Dieu, Dieu, dwy, du in Welsh. So this is like the God or supreme power of keeping your promises. And this, one of my favourite hieroglyphs of all, 3 hills or 3 mountains, Tri Mynydd, Tre Mynydd, which is the word for explorer. So it's a place where you make your certain promises. Might be a pledge place or something like that. The stone where they found this. Certainly, I wouldn't think it's a name for a minute. And if it was, it would be Sigata or something like that. It could be a name as well, Sigata. But I don't think it's in a cartouche or anything. I think it's like a place, I would imagine, where you go to make a promise. And this is the place where you go. Right, anyway, that's not really the point of this. I'm getting sidetracked already. Not really the point of... the main point we're looking at is this place called Punt. Because this Mirsaguas is amazing, and there's been loads of archaeology done there, and they found ancient papyrus ropes still coiled up, like they just left there yesterday. All sorts of stuff to show there was a lot of maritime trade going on there, okay? So you can read all about that. This is Wikipedia, and I've got these other things I look at as well, various scientific, archaeological journals and histories, and you can read all about these things. And the fascinating one is I thought it was about time I learnt more about this strange place called Punt, which it's still on the map, there we go. The same strange place, there's the map you had seen on the front of the video. Right, now what's amazing about this place is where was it? There's no real record of it ever existing, and it's a great example of academics getting themselves into a sort of a blind alley, and then running around really fast in the blind alley rather than just getting out and thinking, maybe we've got a little bit wrong here. So we'll go on to how this name comes up with in a second. Got the land of Punt, which is, I thought it's funny because I live in Pontypridd, so it's Pont and Punt, or Punt, alternative readings, and we'll have a look at that in a second, alright? And it's a trading partner, this is the idea, of ancient Egypt, and it's known for producing and exporting gold, aromatic resins, blackwood, ebony, there it is, right? Remember that because it's going to become relevant in a minute. Ivory, wild animals, and it's known from ancient Egyptian records of trade expeditions to it. So it could be anywhere really, because no one's heard of this place apart from what I would call the misreading of the hieroglyphs. And they got other possible readings for it and stuff. And it gets really interesting. So this is the first part, which immediately leaps out at you, which is Egyptian expeditions to Punt, this strange place, okay? And what we're looking at there, the first, if you look down to it, here she is, Hatshepsut is the one they put this on. Now, if you've read Moses in the Hieroglyphs or Wilson and Blackett's Trojan Wars, you'll know they got completely the wrong character in completely the wrong dynasty, and they're more than 1,000 years out. So that's the first problem. And what these pictures they keep referring to of people taking all these treasures on board and wild animals and amazing things and going to this distant country is most likely a reference to the Queen of Sheba. She was left, it actually says here, although they got the wrong era and the wrong dynasty, they talk about Hatshepsut when she comes back. I think she loses her empire. All this trades in with the fact that the Queen at the time, Nikuta, or the Queen of Sheba, needed an heir. She had no one who was of a sufficient godlike status who could marry her or provide her with a child. So Solomon was considered high enough for her to go ahead with this, and so she went there. I'm just going to check this, excuse me, just make sure it's running. Yes, it is. Good. So I got some feedback. Oh, turn the sound off though. Apologies for that. Okay, right, you can see it on screen. I thought I'd better double check before I ramble on for half an hour. Right, so Hatshepsut is she needs, so that the idea of the story is that through God, the gods will enter through Solomon and into her and provide her with a child. And as part of this process, she takes this massive array of gifts, and that's where you get all these amazing things, all these gold and animals, and this amazing fleet sets off, and you can read the whole story. All right, and which backs up one of the biblical events being a real event, which is great. So we could do a whole video on that. There's, a lot of the book Moses in the Hieroglyphs is based on that, so you can look into it. And you can see here frankincense, ebony, myrrh, all these kind of things. We've been taken on this voyage. Okay, this is the funny thing here. And then they trade them. Always the funny bit where it talks about the people come out to meet them, and they sort of worship and say, take what you like, and all this kind of stuff. So it's all good stuff, all right? The made-up story. Because the problem is if you can't actually read hieroglyphs properly, you have to sort of guess a bit. So you got some great disagreements, going back to the classics of the Flinders Petrie. He thinks that the Egyptians themselves actually came from Punt, and it's an origin story. And he says where it is, and it's great. Then you got Wallace Budge, who's like the legend. He was the British Library, the senior Egyptologist, the keeper, and all that stuff. So he thinks it's southeast of Egypt, all these places. Someone says Lebanon. We should be a bit nearer, actually, if it was the journey. And that's the source of the wood for the temples. But what's amazing here, there we are. This is the region, and this is where it gets really, really crazy, right? I mean, to think, I don't know, people have got great high standing for producing this. How do they get away with it? So all these little question marks. Could it be here? Could it be here? Could it be here? No one's heard of it in any of these places, all right? But anyway, it must be. Because we got these references to these different animals and things you can only get from certain places and whatever, right? Now, this is a bit what you think about. What we got here, genetic study was carried out on the mummified remains of baboons, okay? Those monkey-type things, yeah? Baboons. Now, what they've done, you can read the whole thing at your leisure, is they've got this amazing thing. They just take a couple of hairs. They take some hairs from 2 baboon mummies, okay, that are preserved in the British Museum. And from those hairs, they manage to do tests and all this clever stuff they do. And they can work out from that they come from Eritrea and Ethiopia as opposed to Somalia. So he's kind of arguing about which bit of the Horn of Africa did they come from. That's the level of precision based on, well, according to them, what would it be, 4,500-year-old mummies. More likely 2,500-year but I got the math slightly wrong then. 600-700 BC, it's about 3,000 years ago. Anyway, so that's what we have there. But this is great, right? So they can carry on discussing how this works or doesn't work. And then someone says it's in southwest Sudan and nearby Eritrea and all this kind of stuff. Arabian Peninsula, and he says, no, we think it's in this whole discipline, if you like, this whole area of research into this place, Punt, which, as we'll see in a second, I don't think even exists, okay? I think it's made up. So these drawings in here are gifts being taken and the trade going on. Oh, where's the bit? I'm just going past the bit I wanted. Because about the distant trade, that's what I want. Beg your pardon. Oh no, I did this perfectly when I was practicing. Ah, come on. Where's the bit about this? The ebony wood, that's what I want. Anyway, you can read all about these amazing stuff. Proposed locations, Horn of Africa. Yeah, Sejantus. Arabian... others. Sorry, there we go. Sorry for that. Right, some call it... That is the... in modern-day Sri Lanka, right? What used to be called Ceylon. And I use the term Ceylon is because they found traces of this Diospyros ebenum, what you or I would normally call ebony wood, right? And it's particularly Ceylon ebony, which is a very particular type of wood. It's very dark, it's very hard, and they use it in temples. And it's come all the way from, it must have come from southern India or Sri Lanka, which is quite exciting, right? Because that fits in with this idea of this Odyssey retold of the Egyptian ships going down the Indian coast. Mohenjo-Daro doing a raid there, and there's archaeological evidence to show there's a destroyed city and it was rich and it was a trading place. And they come down, and that's where the journey gets on its way across the Pacific. But listen to this, right? Now remember, earlier on we read how just by analysing a couple of hairs, they could tell which part of Africa a baboon's from, right? But this very distinctive wood, which would come from a long way away, listen to this. Some scholars have argued that Punt is in the early Pandian. So, sorry, I'm not aware of that one. But anyway, the point is here in present-day Sri Lanka, okay? I don't know Sri Lanka very well. So an artifact datable to the 5th dynasty, which originally stated to be from this stuff, right? The cedar, the ebony. A tree which is originary of southern India and Sri Lanka. Now this, however, such identification is now considered unconfirmed because of the unlikelihood of such early contact between Egypt and the Indian subcontinent. So it can't be evidence because it doesn't fit the models, right? We got their dates are 1,000 years out, which doesn't help. But even if they were far back, who's to say how far the Egyptians went, how far they could travel, okay? They have this idea, and you can read more about it in the other things. Oh, these Egyptians are not very good at sea travelling, and they're not aware of it. There's evidence of them travelling all over the place, okay? But that doesn't fit the model, so it can't stand. And they also say the difficulty of correctly identifying a plant specimen that's been dead for thousands of years. So a couple of hairs of baboon, work out where it lived. You find some rather unusual wood, which is pretty distinctive by colour, hardness and various other things. And that's not acceptable because it's from southern India and that's too far away. So it can't be. I mean, this really is what you're up against. Anyway, let's have a look while we're on here just to show I'm not cheating. I'm going to show your Punt. Where are you, Punt? Where's your hieroglyphs? I tell you what, I spent 2 hours trying to get blinking Adobe to let me into my own account, which I pay a lot of money for, to do the graphics, and it's cost me 2 hours. And I have to say, I'm a bit tired now, and it's the IT has done it. Anyway, this is what we have, and I'll show it in more detail. I'll jump over now to my presentation, which is hopefully going to work. Slideshow, it's only a couple of slides, you can see, 4 slides. So that's what they have, okay? And I will just jump down a slide a second. It doesn't blow up very well, so I've redrawn it on the other one. You can see it's the same thing, directly off Wikipedia. You can look it up in other sources. This is what they find, okay? Notice, for one, it's not a cartouche. It's not in a ring. It's just usually drawn on the walls. And they come up with this bizarre punut, which begins punt. They're allowing the W to be pronounced like a vowel, like it is in Welsh. Punt is the only way we would be able to say this. The first thing to note is the order might not even be correct anyway, because what they're doing is this pa. We know this is a pa. It's the first part of Ptolemy. If you know hieroglyphics, you also know it means supreme one. All right, and this is a hair, and they're calling the hair a we, or this is a letter we. Why you have all these different symbols for the same letters, I have no idea, but this is how their conventional works. And then they jump in back up to here, which doesn't really make sense because you normally read like we would read a book, and the facing of the hair tells us to lead left to right. We're moving aside from that anyway. They know this is a T because it's in lots of things. And this, they're just going to ignore it. They're going to call it a determinant or something. They call it, determinative for country. I mean, just to say it's a land, okay? So that's what we have. This is the mainstream view you're supposed to accept. There's a name of a country called Punt, which is not referred to anywhere else. There's no real trace of this country ever existing or where it is. And you can't have them travelling too far because that's not allowed. Or we've got the other option. You look at hieroglyphics, all right? And what we do here, we know the door, por is the sound. And you just look up in Welsh, you get supreme one. And novio is to keep or to preserve. So the supreme one who keeps you are. So it seems like a place where you go for a blessing for your journey, or you'd write something on there. This is great because here, if you get your hieroglyphics book out in the back and you see them scribbling all over it, ready for second edition, for updates and things like that, you'll find our little hair in there. And if I'd put my glasses on, this would have been 10 times easier. It'd be on the right page, would probably been a good idea, wouldn't it? But it's fair to say I know this book pretty well. So what we got the little hair. Sometimes it's the hare's head. You're not able to see that very well, but there it is on the screen anyway. What you do is you see that what I've done is lifted the lines out the dictionary. So you look through for the symbol you're looking for. I can't see what's on screen. Oh, yeah, I don't know if you can see me or not. Just notice I've got a little rabbit on the wall behind me. There we are. So you look for the symbol and it just tells you what it means. It's that easy, okay? It's that easy. There's no 30 years of training and having to work it all out and put together a hypothesis. You just read it. And ferry, and it's interesting, I got the word ferry, which comes from somewhere else in the Moses and the Hieroglyphics book. That's the references for. And I looked at ferry in, not everything's online, Wikipedia. Try and get physical books, all right? Because things change online. Not that this word has changed. Okay. But you can look up, ysgraf and ysgrifwyn are the old Welsh words for ferry. The modern signs you see just ferry with an I, which is just, I guess, a corruption of the English word. Okay, if we look at ferry here, it's a boat or aircraft, etc., for conveying passengers and goods, especially across water, and as a regular service. So it seemed fairly likely this is the place where you get your ferries and your boats if you've got some goods to transport. And what we're talking about there, so you've got the supreme one who looks after you are. Allow for the Welsh syntax, we'll straighten it out in a minute. For ferries, so the journeys over water, and the Tremari is my favourite one there. which is the explorer. So if you're venturing abroad, it can also mean abroad. So if you're going abroad, travelling across water, this is the supreme one who keeps and looks after you. I mean, it makes a bit more sense to me, I would have said. So the point is, the reason why they can't find Punt is it never existed, I would suggest. This is a place where journeys took place and departed for all over the world. Literally all over the world. And this is borne out by the evidence, which they seem to be denying. If you find something from southern India or Sri Lanka, you can't say it's too far away. I can't do that. That's, as Alan Wilson would say, that's cheating. So there's your choices, all right? There's the hieroglyphics. You are the supreme one that protects journeys overseas and explorers. You could change the word on a little bit, and it could be... no, I think I just read as it is. I mean, the Welsh syntax, if you like. So I don't know if it's a place you do a votive offering. Not votive offering, but you make an offering to bless the journey. Or even it could just be a place... What I'd like to see is the longer hieroglyphs. It might just be a place where you go to hire a boat. You know, I want to take my goods to here. This is where I come, and this is where the boats hang out. And it might sound daft, but you'll find another story of an old Egyptian hieroglyphs, which has been... I'll tell that story one of these days, actually, and you'll see it's a very famous story. And people have invented this name of a trading empire, and it actually means available or for rent. There's all these boats with this sign up saying they are available, like for hire on a taxi, you know. And that's been come down to make up this name of this fictitious company that lasted like thousands of years. This company's supposed to have done. But of course, it appears over a long period of time because it just means for hire. Or you can go with the conventional one. If people think hieroglyphics sounds crazy, then go with the conventional one, which is we've got Puenet and the second N. You don't say the second N, that's just a phonetic complement to when and is not spoken. And the last sign is determinative for country or land. And the place is Punt, which no one knows where it is. Doesn't seem to exist, but hey, that's what's in the books. And that's they're going to defend it. All right, so that didn't go, I think that reasonably well. I've gone back to my old camera, unfortunately, because as you know, I was having trouble on Sunday with the new one. And Odyssey Retold will be out soon, and I have to say it's fantastic. And it's a brilliant story about this journey around the world. And also, not only that, we can add in a lot more information since it was written about evidence from Australia, New Zealand, things like this, and hieroglyphs and stuff. So, I'm going to try and work out what do I do now? I always get confused. And I haven't got one of my producers here. And thank you for all those concerned who I was looking tired on Sunday. I was looking great when I did this 2 hours ago. It's the blinking technology it does me. So once I get all that sorted, it'll be fine. I'm okay. Lots of work to do. All right, so thank you very much for watching. Please leave your comments. And if you've got any more contributions, this book will be going to print in the next week or so. COVID restrictions permitting, as they say. But it should be, it's almost done. I just want to put an extra section in, giving some extra information and bringing things up to date, and finishing the maps and the cover and all that kind of project stuff. Right then, so I've wambled on enough, and thank you all for joining me, and until the next time, as I always say, peace. So that's Heddwch.